Every team is tasked with challenges. In fact, some are so common and so frequent, it makes it easy to anticipate them, which makes it easier to overcome them. Hey leader, David Burkus here, organizational psychologist, author of 4 best-selling books on helping leaders and teams do their best work ever. Look, teams face a lot of different challenges. Sure, many of them are unique to the work that you're doing, the industry that you're in, the dynamics of the team, but many of them are not as unique as you think. I work with a lot of leaders from a lot of different organizations, and usually when they describe to me their challenges, it's funny because they say, oh, this problem, it's so unique, and I keep saying the same thing back. Well, it might be unique to you, but it's not unique to me and the teams that I've worked with over the better part of the last 2 decades. So in this episode, we're going to review the 5 challenges that most teams face, 5 challenges that you're almost guaranteed to face at some point leading a team, and offer you some advice on how to overcome them. The first challenge that all teams face is finding direction. Direction here in 2 parts. There is the broader direction of what do we need to do? What are our priorities? What are our objectives? And also sort of setting out those milestones so we know how we're making progress. Most teams and most organizations don't get to decide what they're going to work on. They get tasks and certain projects, and that doesn't mean they have direction. That just means they have an assignment. It's up to a leader to break all of that down, and especially up to a leader to keep their sense of direction strong in an unchanging, unstable environment. That could be changes to the external environment. That could be, global pandemics that threaten the supply chain and force everyone to work from home in their pajamas for almost 2 years. That could also just be the fact that the reward for good work is sometimes more work. And now we have a new project that we've been asked to tackle as a team. And so it's up to a leader to continue to provide that direction by setting those priorities and reestablishing those priorities when changes happen. It's also up to a leader and up to the team to find direction, like lowercase d direction, directions. Who's going to work on what? How are we keeping people up to speed on what we're working on, what project pivots we might have to take? How are we assigning that work to? People want to know what they're responsible for, but they also need to trust that the rest of the team is going to deliver on what they're responsible for. And that is why finding direction is such a challenge. As a leader, I think one of the simplest ways to do this is a regular huddle, you might probably already doing a regular weekly team meeting, but making sure you're asking questions like, what's our focus for the next week or 2 weeks? What are our potential roadblocks? Where do we need help? And also, what do we complete on a regular basis? So people have a chance to give those status updates as well. All of that will help with the small scale direction, which should help with the large scale direction as well. The second challenge all teams face is improving communication. Communication is the lifeblood of any relationship, including the relationships that are on your team. Work is teamwork, and teamwork is essentially how we collaborate and communicate. The challenge is that everybody has different preferences and everybody has a little bit different context. I mean, if you've ever gotten one of those emails from a colleague, a coworker, that's just long, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs long, and you're that type of person that likes to fire off emails with your thumbs on a smartphone, you get what I mean here when we talk about different preferences of communication. And that can lead to a lot of miscommunication as well. Most of the time when communication-oriented conflicts happen, it's because of taken for granted assumptions, miscommunications we have about how we should be communicating with each other because we've never taken the time to understand each other. So as a leader, taking that time, having that conversation, here are the tools that we have available. When do we want to use which one, and how do we want to use it best? This could be everything from coming up with kind of group norms for email practices to reasons that we're going to call virtual meetings or in-person meetings, and then even how we're going to handle those different meetings. All of that is going to go a long way into making sure that everybody's clear on what our group norms are, and that should go a long way in solving the challenge of improving communication. The third challenge all teams face is building trust. Trust is a core component of any relationship, but especially of teamwork. We need to trust that people are going to do what they say we're going to do. We already talked about that in finding direction. But we also need to trust the team enough to share our crazy ideas, to share our failures instead of just trying to hide them. That way the whole team can learn. We need a climate of trust so that people can Feel free to disagree with each other so that we can debate the best possible ideas and find the best possible solutions. And none of that happens if we don't trust each other as a team. And one of the things we know from research is that trust stems from vulnerability. Trust isn't given, trust isn't earned, it's reciprocated. When you step out and act in a vulnerable way, you are signaling to someone else that you trust them. And on a team, when we observe people being vulnerable, it kind of raises the trust barometer. It raises the level that we feel trusted and we reciprocate in kind. So as a leader, if you want to be building trust on a team, this may mean you need to go first. This may mean you need to share certain vulnerabilities you have, not deal breakers you hear. You don't need to be talking about how I didn't have a date for the junior prom. I never really felt like my parents loved me. You don't need to share that kind of stuff. But little things like, I don't know, or challenges you faced in the past. All of those things are going to show people you're human. And in doing so, in showing them that vulnerability, you're going to raise the level of trust in the team. You might even find a few people follow you into vulnerability, and as a team, they follow you into greater levels of trust. The fourth challenge all teams face is keeping diversity. I mean, to be fair, many teams still struggle with finding enough diversity, but even teams that are properly diverse struggle with keeping diversity, keeping a diverse set of ideas and perspectives in all of those discussions. Here's what I mean. I've yet to work with an organization in modern times that isn't trying to increase racial and ethnic and gender diversity on their teams, and that's great. The idea behind that is that it brings an intellectual diversity too, that we have different lived experiences, that we have different perspectives as a result. And because of that, our discussions get richer. We have better ideas together as a team. The challenge is that the more teams work together, the more they have the same past experiences. And so over time, the more they continue to think alike. This may mean you need to rotate rosters on your team more often than you think, but it may mean you need to bring people into your team much more often so you're getting the benefit of outside perspectives and outside diversity. Finding enough diversity to really have great ideas on a team is a challenge. Keeping diversity on that team is a bigger challenge. And the fifth and final challenge that all teams face is maintaining motivation. Staying motivated as a team when things get tough or when they don't get tough, when they get boring, right? Keeping motivation high on a team can be a huge challenge, especially in the midst of conflicts, especially in the midst of stress. And here I've found one of the fastest ways to bond a team together and to keep them motivated is by talking about why the work they do is so important, but not with why, with who, as in who is served by the work that we're doing, who benefits from what our team is focused on. Yes, that might be a customer or a stakeholder down the line in our organization, but it might be an internal customer too. It might be that we hand our work to this team and they're able to do their best work because we bring our best selves to that project. As a leader, it's kind of your job to be collecting these stories, collecting these who-based examples of motivation for you to use on your team. So anytime you get a thank you note, anytime you read a report that puts your team in a positive light, anytime you read a broader story about how the work that your organization is doing, and you can tie that back to a specific thing that your team did, capture that and save it so that when you kick off a weekly meeting or when you're with your team, at any point in time, you're never at a loss for what to share to help maintain motivation. You've got this collection of stories, this collection of who benefits from the work that we do, so you can keep those motivation and inspiration levels high. Now, these 5 are challenges your team either has faced or will face in the future. They're not all of the challenges you're going to face, but here's what I've found. If you can get a plan together to proactively go after these 5 challenges, if you can plan on ways to keep diversity but also build trust, and if you can plan on ways to maintain motivation, then as new specific to your team challenges arise, your team will be working better together and will be better able to overcome them because your team is already doing their best work ever. Oh, and one more thing. Bonding on a team is hugely important for a lot of the challenges that we talked about in this video, but we didn't go specific into bonds. That's okay, because if you're interested in that, you're gonna wanna check out this video here. We did a whole episode on how teams bond, and you're gonna wanna check it out.